Last call for Sonic Triple Trouble.
What the fuck? I thought we discontinued you.
Sometimes I'm here, sometimes I'm not. That's just the way I work. I'm a voice inside your head.
I don't want a voice inside my head. That sounds like it could be a problem. Go away!
Alright, bye, I'm leaving. You'll never hear me again.
Shit, I miss him. Ah, Sonic Triple Trouble. You know, when you grow up in the early 2000s more so than the 90s, a lot of classic Sonic games seem pretty foreign to you. Everyone has Sonic 1 through 3 and Knuckles down. Maybe Sonic CD will seem a little obscure to you, but you probably hear about it at a point. But then you discover Sonic Triple Trouble, and it's like a part of the series has been hidden from you. I mean, this is the game that has my boy Fang in it. Sadly, it was a Game Gear release, and okay, my earliest memory of playing video games probably comes from 1999 or 2000. I didn't have a Game Gear, and apparently even if I did, I'd only be able to play this thing for like an hour before the fucking battery died. So regardless, this game was not very practical. It didn't get released on the two big GameCube collection packs, Sonic Mega Collection and Sonic Gems Collection, both of which included some lesser known entries because they actually grew a pair unlike some collection packs. But luckily, Sonic Triple Trouble got a release as an unlockable game in the 2003 re-release of Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut, which kinda sounds like one of the names that South Park was using to make fun of different businesses in their future specials. Do you really need DX and Director's Cut in the title? So now I'm going to relive those lovely memories and replay Sonic Triple Trouble, a game that may have not been as fast-paced or precise as the original games of the series, but one that I think still has a lot to offer. They cut the unlockable games from the Xbox port of DX. Why the fuck would they do that? Why do they insist on making me unhappy? What is so DX about this game then? That it looks worse than a game released in 1999? God damn it! Well, I did have it for GameCube. I don't know how to capture GameCube footage, so I'm just gonna have to grab my camera and record the screen and... oh no. Hey! Get back here! What the fuck?!
Farewell, Spiny woman. Don't forget the good times we had together.
Why do people keep dying on my show? Alright, I managed to find a way to play and record the game. We don't need to ask questions on how I pulled this off. So we start with the choice to play as either Sonic or Tails. Not both! This was a Game Gear release, so they couldn't both be bothered to show up. One of them needed to be in a McDonald's commercial that week. With the rare opportunity to play through the entire game as Tails, I took it. And while I think Sonic's moveset makes for a more fun playthrough of this game, Tails does do you a lot of favors in both getting to the special stages and completing the special stages. In this game, you need to collect 50 rings and then break open a capsule with a picture of a Chaos Emerald on it. After that, you'll be transported to the special stages. This game definitely has some of the weirder special stages of the series, as they kinda just serve as separate levels in the game, just with a time limit now. And I do not enjoy them even remotely. There's also these playing sections that are fine, I guess. Definitely better than the other ones, at least. These stages also end with a fight between you and the newcomer of the series, Fang, who despite making quite the appearance on the box art, really only appears in the special stages, which I don't really understand why. As someone who doesn't personally enjoy these stages, I think that's kind of lame that this is where he's left to. The first zone is Great Turquoise Zone, which is a decent start to the game. Kind of falls into your typical, the first level is a grass-themed level. Maybe mix in a few waterfalls and some underwater sections too. Right off the bat, you can tell that with this being on a different hardware, the speed isn't quite what the previous Sonic titles had to offer. And then there's some other weird issues, like the hitbox in the rings isn't great. But all in all, I do still think it's fun. It's kind of like playing a demake. The music is a little lower in quality, the sprites are a little less detailed, the gameplay isn't as precise, but all in all, it's still pretty charming. I use that word too much. I am cut off from saying the word charmin' for at least 10 videos. Okay, 5. I mean, I say the music is lower in quality, but yeah, that's in comparison to some of the greatest video game tracks ever made. I still enjoy the music of this zone. Fang actually has a pretty memorable theme for each of his fights, and the boss music isn't bad either. Tails and Sonic both have a special move they can use. Tails can fly, big shock, and Sonic gets to use his run-in-and-play speed-up move back from CD. That's a nice detail. The game has unique idle animations, it has original enemies to fight. It's so far a game with more limitations than previous Sonic games, but still a game that you can tell they were trying to make good. This wasn't just a quick cash grab for Sega, there is love here. Still, I guess it wouldn't suck if some of these ideas were brought to a better hardware with less holding it back. Well, what if I were to tell you that some madman put together their own remake of this game, taking each idea that worked in the original and expanding upon it, up to the point where it feels less like a side game but a legitimate follow-up to Sonic & Knuckles? Well, hell, let's switch over to my laptop and oh goddammit! I got mad a couple of times and threw my controller again. See, I wasn't playing that on an emulator, how gross of you to assume that. So in 16-bit, before we even make it to the first level, we get a cutscene implying that this game takes place directly after the events of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. After landing the plane, Sonic and Tails take off, where we get to look at some of the major changes from the original. For starters, instead of choosing Sonic or Tails, you get to play as both of them, kinda like how you're able to in Sonic 2 and 3. However, what really helps it stand out is the ability to switch back and forth between them. Really solid idea, seems like something that would have fit in with the original games really well too. Wouldn't surprise me if Origins had some sort of mod that lets you do this. Sonic and Tails still have the same controls as they do in the original for the most part. They both have their special move from Triple Trouble and the same idle animations recreated with the sprites from Sonic 3. It's all very well presented, and hey look, they even threw in the drop dash for Mania. I'm so glad that this has just become a standard move in both fan games and official Sonic. It was such a great add-on to the series. Kinda helps you understand how this game is going to feel right away, but to make things even better, we start the game off with a Super Sonic fight. And I mean, it's a Super Sonic fight that I'm pretty sure is impossible to lose, but it's still a really neat way to get started. Probably one of the most standout openings to any classic Sonic game. I'd say the only one that has it beat is Sonic 3, only because it introduces Knuckles, like that's gonna be a pretty hard thing to beat. But this one does have more going on and lets you take control. It's genuinely one of the best openings to a Sonic game I've ever played. Great Turquoise Zone follows the same themes as the original, it's kind of just your grassy level 1 setting, but again, with some new ideas thrown in, and yeah, it's pretty great. This game, if it wasn't obvious, controls much nicer than the original Triple Trouble, but to be fair, it also controls much nicer than a lot of Sonic games. The music is updated from the first one, but is still recognizable, and since it's not playing off the Game Gear speaker, it has a lot less restrictions, so they can go much harder with the music. They also make separate music for both Act 1 and 2, which is really cool considering the original just uses the same track for all the acts. The special stages are a lot more fun. Fang is actually involved in the game outside of the special stages, as his boss fights are now part of the game's main storyline. He looks great in this game, by the way. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles have their old sprites to go off of. Fang did not, so well done here. This game takes the kind of lame boss battle of Great Turquoise Zone and does something a lot more interesting with it. Gives it a much cooler design while still keeping it really easy as it is the first boss fight. Now I don't want this to be a let's shit on Sonic Triple Trouble and praise the fan remake video, because this game can't exist without the original, and as much as I love this remake, it is taking all of its biggest ideas from somewhere else. Now, it does have some original ideas in there too, quite a lot actually. I've already gone over quite a few of them, but while, yes, this remake is clearly a better game, it feels like a love letter to the original game. Like somebody loves Sonic Triple Trouble enough to put this much effort into remaking it in the first place. This is years of effort that he was paid nothing to make. So with all of that in mind, let's jump back over to the original Triple Trouble. We'll split this up zone by zone for the remainder of this video. Sunset Park Zone is pretty distinct visually. You know, this game has a grass level, a water level, and a snow level. All of these can be seen in older Sonic games, and just platformers in general, but Sunset Park is a pretty new idea for a Sonic game, and I think as a result it's probably the most iconic stage in Triple Trouble. Okay, I'm lying, the reason it's the most iconic stage in Triple Trouble is because of the damn train boss. It has really memorable music, and it's very different from most boss battles in Sonic. It's a memorable enough part of the game to where it actually managed to be part of the 30th year anniversary symphony. It certainly helped give this game an identity of its own and kept you on your toes a bit. The first time you played this game, you probably weren't expecting a section like this, and now a lot more seemed possible. And honestly, even after this part, they do continue to throw new ideas out there. Like later in the game, you have to do a boss battle in a submarine. I think the remake really understood the significance of this train section well, because it's one of the most action-packed moments of the entire game. It delivers an excellent remix of the iconic tune. They have Fang shooting at you in the foreground of the screen. They really made him more involved in this one. They have a bunch of capsules on the inside of the train where you have to open them and rescue the animals. It has you hopping from train to train rather than just being a single train. They really went all out with this fight, and I couldn't be happier with it. The rest of Sunset Park works really well in the remake too. To me, the most notable thing with this stage is how charitable it is with the amount of entries to special stages. If you fuck up one, you'll get another chance pretty quickly. Oh, and that reminds me, if you fail a special stage, you can also retry it by sacrificing one of your lives. I think that's a pretty good middle ground to what classic games and Origins did with the special stages. I love being given an extra chance to defeat them, but I can also understand not wanting to make things too easy on the player, because I mean those coins in Origins are really easy to get your hands on. Aside from the great train boss, we get a pretty nice boss battle with Knuckles too, which just has you face him on the ground, which I like a lot. No mech suit or submarine for Knux, just a good old jump on each other's head fight. Like Fang, they do a much better job of implementing Knuckles into the game than the original did. For example, Sonic and Tails seem confused on why Knuckles is attacking them again. In the original Triple Trouble, you can give them some credit, as Knuckles was still a fairly new character, and a rival character for that matter. So wanting him to be antagonistic again, I suppose, isn't too different from wanting Shadow to be antagonistic again in Heroes. It's less about the plot and more about the look. They want a similar looking character to Sonic to be his rival so they can face off, and then pose it for the box art. Still, all these years later, it's nice to have a version that portrays these characters in a more realistic way. Why yes, it is weird that this guy who we just proved our innocence to is back to thinking we're evil and attacking us again. What the fuck gives? More on that later. Next up is Meta Junglera Zone, and I don't know. I'm not crazy for this one. There's a lot of circles that you bounce off of. Honestly, I'm not even sure what they're supposed to be. I want to say this is quicksand, maybe? There's a lot of these other circles, but if you jump into them, they launch you. Props for coming up with some new mechanics for the stage, just not really ones that are all that fun in my opinion. Music is fine, the first two zones had stronger tracks though for sure. Decent boss. I do like how the bosses in this game are actually robots made by Robotnik, rather than Robotnik in a machine that he built for himself. They're all animal themed too. You've got a turtle, snake, penguin, train. In the remake, they start strong with a nice little transition from the train to the next stage. I've always liked it when classic Sonic tried to find ways to connect the levels through a tiny cutscene. Makes you feel like you've ran every step yourself on this adventure. It requires a lot of work for a very small payoff, but it's an appreciated payoff. In Act 1, the music is better? It's pretty much the exact same theme, just with better digital instruments. Can't really hold that against the original, there's just more resources out there now. How many times are you gonna say that? What? I think people get it now, Spiny. Triple Trouble isn't amazing, but under the circumstances of the limitations of the time, it's fine. Why do you feel the need to keep repeating that? Because I'm terrified of other people. I feel like if I say one thing they don't like, they'll gang up on me in a heartbeat. Pfft, that's no good reason to repeat the same bullshit over and over again. You think I'm afraid of these clowns? Hey everyone, Sonic fucking sucks ass. Hey, there's nothing wrong with sucking ass if you do it responsibly, I don't know. I'm bored. When are you gonna make more Better Call Saul content? I just made a Better Call Saul video. It's about the sexiest characters of the franchise. Oh. Was Howard at the top? Yes, Howard was at the top! Act 2 doesn't do anything much different with the music either, just different sounding instruments and the tone's a little different, but it works. The level as a whole is, no surprise, much better. They're just generally designed better. It feels a lot less cramped than the original's version does. Still, it's not my favorite stage in either version of the game. Far from the worst in the original, possibly the worst in the remake. Though I really do like these little snake guys they added in the remake. Good job. Robotnik Winter Zone. Not an amazing name, but a pretty fun level in both versions of the game. In the original, you get a unique power-up depending on who you're playing as. If you play as Sonic, you get a snowboard and you can ride through the level really quickly. If you play as Tails, you get to skip an entire portion of the level with his rocket boots. Okay, it's not actually that effective. It enhances your fly for a short period of time, and you can skip a decent portion of the level using it. You can also use it to break through ice. Looking at the map, it could probably also be used as a way to access certain parts of the map more easily. Moving over to 16-bit, we're not even on Robotnik Winter Zone right away, as we get an entirely original level, Egg Zeppelin Zone, which cleverly utilizes Tails' power-up from Robotnik Winter Zone in the original, whereas once we make it to Winter Zone, we get to use Sonic's ability in the snowboarding section. Nice way to include both power-ups after merging Sonic and Tails together in the game. I love how even little details like that get adapted into the remake somehow. Tails' rocket shoes could have easily been ignored and no one would have noticed, but no, he found a way to include them anyways. Egg Zeppelin Zone is a pretty neat level. It's reminiscent of stages like Wing Fortress Zone or Flying Battery Zone, with a little time trial placed at the very end. Moving on to Winter Zone, just like the original, it's a pretty fun level. The most notable change here is that in Act 2 we start with a snowboarding section, more similar to what they did in the Sonic Adventure games, rather than anything else. I know that sounds a little weird, but it works pretty well. Moments like these do lead for a more grand feeling to the adventure. Great stuff on both games' ends. Sadly, in the case of the original Triple Trouble, the fun ends here because I think the last two stages are god-awful, while the remake does a much better job. Tidal Plant Zone is a pretty bad level in the original. I found the entire experience to be super tedious. Like, you're taking the already slower pace of Triple Trouble and slowing it down even more, just for starters, but you're also lacking what worked in the other Sonic Water stages. Sonic 3, for example, has Hydrocity Zone. Hydrocity Zone, I'm not gonna into that shit right now. Which not only has land sections and some water sections you can avoid, but it also found ways to speed up the water portions that make them a lot more tolerable, resulting in a pretty fantastic water level. Hell, Labyrinth Zone isn't my favorite, but that one at least contains some pretty major shortcuts, has great music, and has more land portions than Tidal Plant Zone does. Tidal Plant throws in some new ideas, like traveling around in a bubble, which I mainly just appreciate as a method to not drown in. In terms of a fun gameplay mechanic, this isn't really doing much for me. Alright, and I want to be fair with my footage here, the game was lagging at points and it was especially bad in this level, but I've played it on other platforms too, and yeah, it's still pretty slow. I've already mentioned in previous videos that my mindset with Sonic isn't that if I'm not going fast, it's bad. I think in a lot of cases it's just as the game gets harder you have to work harder at gaining full speed. Hell, even if a level wants to have some slower platform, and I'm personally okay with that for a portion, it's nice to have a little variety. But when it's an entire level, it just doesn't feel like the right series for that kind of gameplay. I'm way more accepting of stages like this in a game like Donkey Kong Country. I said I'm more accepting, not that I enjoy them. In 16-bit, we've already fought Knuckles twice at this point, but in the original, this is our first big showdown with Knuckles, and we fight him in a submarine. And Samir, does Knuckles look a little too big in this part? It's an easy enough boss battle. It doesn't really convey information that well. I wasn't sure whether or not my attacks were actually doing something. Often an enemy lights up for a second if you hurt them. Not in this game. But again, not really that hard of a boss, so whatever, you figure it out pretty quickly. And that's basically the end of Knuckles for Triple Trouble. He gets captured by Robotnik and you rescue him at the end, regardless if you collected all the emeralds or not. I used to think that was like the good ending to rescue him, but no, it just happens no matter what. The good ending is you ride away on an airplane, with the most epic Sonic sprite of all time. You make amends with him once again, and that's it. Now 16-bit goes somewhere a lot more interesting with this. For starters, Tidal Plant Zone is a much better level in the remake. Honestly, it's probably better than the jungle level from earlier. They really took this lame level and did something with it. There's more land portions, if you're going fast enough you can actually skip across the water like a rock, but the water sections themselves aren't too bad. Instead of just using the submarine for a boss fight, you also get to use it for Act 2 of the zone. And it's not the most fun thing ever, but we've hit Donkey Kong Country levels. You know, it's fine. But once you get through that Knuckles boss fight, the game does something that changes everything. Something that the original Triple Trouble never thought to do, that makes the entire game's story make sense. I kid you not, when I saw this reveal, I reacted like a fucking child. It was this moment that really tied everything together so nicely.
Shoot him. Shoot Knuckles. Wait,
All
he's
right.
not...
I'll be back.
Did you just fucking see that?
Plot twist.
That actually is a plot twist. They made a reason for Knuckles to start attacking you again.
The Triple Trouble isn't Knuckles, Fang, and Robotnik. It's Metal Sonic, Fang, and Robotnik. Knuckles is framed by Metal Sonic, Robotnik is the one pulling all the strings, and Fang is just some dickhead who's in way over his head and has no idea what he just got himself involved in. And that's why I love him. Please use him again, Sega. Just do it. Just fucking do it. You missed your fucking chance in R. You did a good job in Fighters, but then you just fucked up until Mania, and fuck you. Put him back in. Dick. The remake also does a great job of portraying this in Fang's reactions in the final zone. Like, why is it only that fans can do this right? Like, in every single way, just making him playable, just like understanding that the personality of this character is fun and they should use him. And why is it that the fucking fan remake of Triple Trouble actually, like, utilizes him and makes him, like, you know, present? I'm sorry. It really brings this concept together. Sonic Triple Trouble had some really great ideas, but it wasn't able to fully deliver on them in terms of level design and storytelling. There was so much potential in this game, probably more so than any other Game Gear release for Sonic. I think that it's a game that deserved to be retold, and Noah and Copeland could have not done a better job. So the final stage in Triple Trouble is Atomic Destroyer Zone, and it's a pretty bad level. It's somehow worse than Tidal Plant Zone. It's supposed to be this cool space-looking finale, but the mechanics are just kinda lame. Like, the whole thing just serves as a big maze that you have to work yourself through. None of the platforming is really all that fun, and it's pretty easy to get lost in both acts of this finale. I had a really bad time with it, both as a kid and during my playthrough of it. It's a huge dip in quality for the ending, and that really is too bad. The remake, big shock, does a much better job, however I'd say it's probably just as frustrating as the original Triple Trouble, just in a better way to be frustrating. The original Atomic Destroyer Zone is frustrating because it's really boring, long, and tedious. The remake's Atomic Destroyer Zone is fucking hard, man. Okay, it's really only the second zone that is difficult, but it's pretty fucking difficult. But with that in mind, yeah, it's the final stage, it has every right to be hard. And while it is difficult, I wouldn't call it unfair. Hell, now that I know what to expect, I feel like I could go through it much quicker. In fact, I did when I replayed the game to collect all the emeralds. It's got 3 different platform challenges that you have to clear, and all 3 of them have different enemies shooting at you, jumps that are harder to time properly, upside down portions, random buzzsaws flying at you, giant lasers, capsules that are designed to trick you. It's throwing a lot at you, with a time limit and a boss battle waiting for you at the end. If you game over during this boss fight, which I did, you're starting all of that shit over again. Hard level. Good level, but hard level. As I said before, collecting all the emeralds gives you a minimal payoff in the original. I mean, that Sonic sprite is a beauty, but that's all you're getting. Triple 16-bit throws in a new final boss where you have to take on an evolved version of Metal Sonic with 3 phases, each of which involves him covering up more and more of the screen. This final boss is perhaps a little on the easy side, but it's still a lot of fun and gives for a way more satisfying finale. I love that the build-up to this fight includes Knuckles and Fang aiding you as well. Again, really utilizes the characters in the story. And I guess with all of that, I've said everything I need to about Sonic Triple Trouble, which, thank God, I've been saying that title a lot for the last couple months. What game did I announce I was gonna play next? Oh, Sonic Forces, a release that everyone in the fandom had a very vocal opinion about for the last 5 years. Awesome, what the fuck am I going to add to that discussion?